Okay, great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Mr. Smith, did you bring your coat? Would you like to
I forgot.
It's okay.
No.
You gotta know energy is. Okay, so just to start, we have the new sheets to facilitate the bathroom system. Did everyone print those? So I'm just gonna grab mine real quick and show you. I printed it up for the next few weeks, and I suggest you do the same, just stapling them, making sure there's that date, because it is a record if anything should happen in the restroom, which we hope it doesn't, but just in case, it's always there. I'm really excited to think this is going to facilitate the bathrooms a lot. That's something that's been wasting a lot of time in our bathroom breaks. Also, transitions to math and from math, read aloud, TA, and writing. Those are the subjects that we're really losing a lot of instruction time, so we want to make sure that we're leaving that couple extra minutes of cushion time for our transitions, especially from specials, and ending our math lessons sometimes, so we have time for things like the bathroom so that they don't get backlogged to this last 5 to 10 minutes. Copies should be in today or tomorrow. I will plan to have them in the back, and please just come pick them up as soon as you can. Take 20 copies of each. Just a heads up for writing next week, there's no packet, but there's a couple of single sheets that you'll need to pick up. I'll try and separate those so that they're easily identifiable, but I believe it's for Friday and Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. And then just one small change, just so you know, Notre Dame's after lunch bathroom break has been taking a really long time, and I think part of that is that there's only 2 stalls in that east bathroom. There are quite a few girls, so since no one's using this west bathroom, that's where we're going to be. Just so if you come looking for us or you need something, that's where we'll be after lunch.
We're switching, so I'm at west. He's at east.
So you're
Okay.
here, Mr. Smith will be at east.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, that's.
Oh, I was just wondering if that was.
Is that fine? Yeah,
that's fine.
Okay.
if that works best for you guys, that's totally fine. Okay. Moving on to math, one small thing, and I mentioned this to you, Miss Bruce, in your debrief notes. So one thing that we did last year that was really effective was having the kids come to math group with their review problems done. Then that way we don't waste a few minutes of instruction time. So plan
Those two, I noticed those
Yeah.
took a long time, and
Yeah.
I felt bad asking kids to stop because
Yeah.
they were working, but
And it is a really valuable CFU tool, because if you see from the previous day you're not getting this, the next day still build on it, and like it's not going to go anywhere if you don't get it.
So how does that work? They just come in with it done and then we still model it and then they like check theirs against ours?
Good question. So what we did last year was, first of all, we would get upstairs a lot quicker. So let's aim to get down there a little early today to pick them up early. And then we would have them do their review problems first, especially the kids who come in late, and then do their DMA. It gives them a little bit more urgency, like you have to get this done.
I thought you said the you do problems. Okay.
No,
Review,
I'm sorry.
review,
Yeah,
okay.
the review problems. Yeah. So then when you come in, it should already be done. And if you're not already doing this, Miss Bruce does a really good palm and fist system, the air high five if you got it, and I like how you said a fist if you're going to get it next time. That really takes the shame away from showing a fist. So that's good language around that. So hopping over to, just a heads up for IP number 2, there's a problem about distance. You didn't go to that already. So, Mr. Smith, can you quickly talk through a good strategy to use for that?
Yeah, so a strategy that we used last year, especially like with distance problems, is actually creating a timeline, and you can just create like an arrow, and it's like nice to just, you can draw like a little house if they're going to a house, and actually getting them to label the specific parts, the distance for each way that they're going. They also struggle with if it's a problem where someone's going somewhere a certain distance and then they're coming back. They oftentimes forget to go back and like draw the arrow backwards. So it's really helpful to create that timeline.
Yeah, especially with that flight one where they have to, it's like a round trip.
Yeah.
They kind of struggle to get that. We're going to spend a little extra time on math today because I want to make sure we're solid on the process. So, Ms. Epic, can you just talk us through the process for story problems? There are quite a few of them that are a little tricky today.
yeah, absolutely. So my process that I had them follow for story problems is after they read the word problem, and they think about it like they would think about any story that they read. So who's the main character? What is the story about? And then tell the story chronologically, like think about it as if they're a first person story. So they tell the problem like it's a story. So for example, Tommy found 628 pennies in a fountain in Central Park. He only found 72 in another fountain. How many pennies did you find? I would talk them through that. I'm like, okay, so Tommy's our main character. At the beginning, he finds X mini, and then he's walking along and he finds this mini,
Mhm.
and then have them walk through that way. Once they can understand, then they pick the operation that most helps them, which is addition in all of these, but it could be different.
Yeah.
And so they pick what it is based on the story they tell, not based on the wording of the problem, because I've had kids trying to subtract
Yeah.
yesterday, but I was
Because
like, we
they
haven't
see
even
less.
talked about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and one kid was literally like, well, my teacher told me always do this.
Yes.
Yeah, that
And I was
was-
like, absolutely
Yes,
not.
I'm
I
glad you
have
said
to
that.
think about, because
Yeah.
I think some people have, these kids have misinformation, but then the wording can be so.
Yeah, and so it works maybe in previous grades, but with the situations and our problems, it doesn't work. So one thing that's helpful, rooting the choice of their operation and the definition of that operation. So I tell my kids combining amounts to find a total, because if it's just rote memorization, they're gonna forget it. So if there's some sort of gesture that accompanies that, that's really helpful. And then also just making sure we're sticking to the technical vocabulary. So literally saying, first I build the first add, I build the second add, and making sure that they know what an add and a sum are is going to be super crucial. So we're going to hop on over to Read Aloud. One thing I wanted to talk about is this awesome idea that Miss Meza had, which was for our charts. So she's like, why are you writing things out? Why don't you just copy and paste it? I was like, that's brilliant. So today, what I did is I literally just copied this, printed it out, enlarged it, put some tape there, and it's right there. So I think that's gonna potentially save us a lot of time. So thanks to Ms. Meza for that awesome idea. And so I know it's quick to try that out to date, but I urge you to try it out. I think it's gonna save a lot of time with these posters, especially these ones that we have to save for the rest of the day.
I feel like that's like definitely gonna create like more discussion time for the kids
Yes.
because like it takes like whatever, like even if it's just 2 minutes of like writing it out, I think it's like
Or even doing it ahead of time. I know
Yeah.
if I do it after school, I'm like, oh, fun, put on some music, and it takes way too long. It takes
Yeah.
longer than necessary. Okay, so there's a lot of pages to read, especially from 22 to 26 at the end. So, Ms. Bruce, what's your plan to engage the kids during those long pages?
I think checking
that long
in,
stretch.
checking in every whatever like reasonable chunks to make sure that they're following the plot. I know I had some trouble yesterday with them getting the characters mixed up, and they were like,
Okay.
Shiloh kicked Judd. I was like, not quite. So just checking in and like doing a lot of CFUs about plot, just to make sure they're all on board and engaged until the end of the chapter.
Yeah, one thing that's tricky when we have those long stretches of a lot of reading is like, I know I tend to get bogged down in like, what's going on? But just always reading that in what we're talking about. So today the objective is characterizing Judd. So do you have any ideas for how you plan to engage the scholars, Mr. Smith?
yeah, so just like continuing from yesterday, trying to check in at moments, since there's moments where Judd is actually doing something or he's actually speaking,
Yes.
just checking in right then.
Yeah, one idea that I had is having them put their finger on their nose whenever they hear something that Judd says or Judd does. Then it's clear, like, okay, are they just doing it because everyone else is doing it? Or are they doing it because they really understand it? All right. So one other thing is the wanted poster for today. Make sure they know what that is before they start the independent practice, or that could go a little crazy. Okay. Writing. One just tip is they start to do a free write today. And that's a lot of writing, and they're going to need to add in and go back and revise in the future. So have them skip lines in their notebook. One way you can have them remember to do that is put an X on every other line, and then that means like, hey, I'm not gonna write there. Another strategy, you might run into some stamina issues today because it is a free write. Miss Bruce, what ideas do you have for helping them to continue writing if they kind of like get stuck?
I think always pointing back to the 5 senses and the 5 who, what, wheres, and like checking in and seeing, okay, so you've covered like where you met this person. Now tell me like what, or like how you met this person. So like always checking in on what they've covered and what they haven't. So I think that they think that they've covered it all, but they really haven't.
Right. Okay. And Mr. Smith, did you try Story Mountain yesterday?
Yeah, I did. It
How did
worked.
that
It was really good, especially for kids who are like struggling with like coming up with an idea.
Yeah, I had them label, or if they were struggling, have them label the top of their T-chart. But they're like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Like, okay, now I get it. I think that
Yeah. Oh,
works,
cool.
too.
Yeah. So just adjusting that graphical.
I think that was also helpful because yesterday we had beginning, middle, and a lot of them were struggling at the end. Or like, how did I feel after? And it was like
Yeah.
kind of like a visual way to kind of
Good. I'm glad to hear that worked. I thought of a couple other things. So I imagine like everyone's gonna pick someone close to their mom, dad, grandma, brother, sister. But having them use a heart map. I don't know if everyone's seen that. I was gonna bring an example and I forgot. I'm sorry about that. But a heart map where like each piece. I think I jotted it down.
Yeah, it's in the plan, yeah.
Yeah, each piece corresponds to. So each piece of the heart corresponds, the size corresponds to the importance of that person. So maybe like mom would go in the middle or something. Or like there's also a palm map, so like they go in the middle, like who's most important to me? Because I imagine they're gonna have a hard time picking a person. And when they do, coming up with details about that person. So really maybe just having them think about like what do you like about that person, really getting to that idea of the character traits. So that's something we're really focusing on in all of our subjects. Okay, moving on to TA. So, Mr. Smith, can you go ahead and share with us your main idea for this awesome package
Yeah,
of
so
water bears?
my main idea was termite
Oh, I'm
mounds.
sorry, termites. not
Yeah,
water.
sorry. Termite mounds are complex structures that are vital not only to termites but to other creatures around them.
Great. A little added piece, like just to get to the deeper meaning. I said termites can be pests, but in the wild, their generosity allows other animals to survive. Sounds a little
So
generous. Yeah. So really, we want to work towards pushing our kids to do the main idea. I know we're strapped for time, but I think today in our weekly prep session, as you saw in the email, we're going to exclusively focus on TA. And if we can really get that process down to a set number of steps that they do every time and really habituate that process, I think it's going to save us time, and then we will have time to have them jot down a main idea, and they're going to get better and better at it, and as a result, they're going to understand the passages better. Let's see. How's IP going? How's independent practice going? Sorry, how's independent practice going?
It's going okay. Yesterday we, pacing wise, didn't get to as much as they need, but a lot of it was sometimes we'll get tied up in guided practice and they'll have so many questions about it that, it's sort of a judgment call of to what extent is this helpful for them in informing how they do their, their homework.
Yeah.
So today my goal is to really, really give them the time. One thing I did yesterday was I went over the questions from their homework the other day to explain what the second best answer was and to think about it, which seemed to be helpful. They all were cheering if they got it and shucks if they didn't, and they could all remember it. But I think instead of doing that, Mr. Smith gave me the idea that I should do that on independent practice, so doing independent practice, and then after save those 5 minutes for going through it like that, so it's so fresh on their mind.
I think that's a great idea. Really just preserving the instruction time for that lesson and that skill, but I do think it is really important to go over the homework. Another idea that I tried in the past and I wouldn't do it every time is making snack time kind of like that time where we regroup. Okay, so I noticed that no one got 100% on the homework. Getting 100% is not the most important thing, it's understanding it. So I want to make sure you're using the strategies. One thing I noticed is they're really great in the guided practice using the strategies because we're reading it. But then when they get to independent practice, nobody's labeling the text, nobody's labeling the problem, solution, or thinking about the most important point about that topic. So really shifting them to get them to do that independently so they can apply it. So I think that's a really great idea. Still going on with homework, but moving it to another part. Just out of curiosity, what kind of questions do they typically have, Ms. Epley?
My kids, they actually have a lot of, yesterday they had a lot of questions where they were going off in a different direction about the test. And so that was a big thing yesterday that we had to address was a lot of them were but on the test. And so I think there's still that misconception that this is exclusively for test practice. Other types of questions they might have, things more specifically to whatever question we're working on, just not understanding why something's the best answer.
Yeah.
Or they'll keep saying oh, well, that's the right answer, and I'll have to be we're not looking for the right answer because there could be many right answers. We're looking for the best answer.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of hard for them, and that has been a source of questions.
Okay, so let's parking lot that for now because we will talk about it at our weekly prep meeting, but I think that's just streamlining the instruction because it is when they have questions about the test, you don't want to shut them down and no, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, it just
Well,
gets them freaked out. They're this test. Let's hop on over to social studies. So, Ms. Epley, Can you talk a little bit about how you engaged the scholars in latitude and longitude yesterday? Because they seem to be really interested in that.
Yeah, sure. So I explained to them that latitude and longitude, I kind of like brought it into why it's so important and explained that like we have a latitude and longitude right now. We could, find where we are on the map, and that's how you can tell whatever. And then I put it into math and was like, if you can imagine an X and Y plane, like it's like one of those, but it's around the Earth. So I actually started yesterday by really thinking about the equator and the prime meridian, even though that was really for today's content, because for me in my brain, I can't think. It was hard for me to think about how to instruct them on going north of something if we didn't know where we were going north from.
Yeah.
And then I found a little ball, like 3D object to draw with, which is great because I hated that ball and wanted to use for it anyway. So then I used it that way to show them both on the map, but then also in physical space, what I was talking about. So yeah.
Ms. Brooks, what struggles did you notice yesterday?
They were constantly confused, which was latitude and which was longitude, and especially when it was like, as we predicted, like the north, every time they go, that's longitude. It was like, I think just like continuing to practice that would be beneficial.
Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. I have two ways to remember that. One is I think of latitude as like lat and sat rhyme, so it's like the one that's a little lower down. Or also Lucas told me last night it's fatitude.
Oh, I
Why?
heard that before.
So I don't know if we're allowed to use that language here, but if you like, might be easier. And I think of long because you're getting long and tall.
Yeah, I have them in the gesture. I think it's not so much that they're confused which is which. They were at first, but I think they got there in the end. And they're confused when they see the numbers in the north and the south.
And that's confusing.
And they get mixed
I
up.
think when you introduce equator today and prime meridian, that will be helpful. So generally in social studies, kind of thinking of that whole scope of lessons throughout the week. So really thinking about the notes in the memo this week, Ms. Mayfield will be sending it out. So really looking at like how she kind of like shows the arc of the lessons. And I think that will help us. I think it was a good instinct on our part to introduce the equator and prime meridian to kind of give them a context for that. Awesome. Okay, so we ran a little bit long today, sorry. So we're gonna hop on now to get the kids. That's all for today. Yeah, okay. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3.